following program contains graphic scenes of military violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
Todd, I'll love it. Todd, I'll love it.
Todd and Craig, good to hear you guys.
Todd, I'll love it.
This is Attorney Todd L. Levitt.
Honestly, you could not be any more spot on.
Now, from the Black Diamond Group mothership in the studios of 98.5 UPS, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, Attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting in the middle of the mitten in a beautiful green nutrient field with my good friend Craig Russell, the muscle, the hustle, currently on tour right now with Lollapalooza 2024-2025, opening for Metallica and Ozzy and so many other great rock groups. He is in demand. The water's wet. The sky is blue. Craig, I didn't know you had it in you. How you doing, Craig?
Well, I'm fan-flippin-tastic, but I don't even know if Ozzy or Metallica are at Lollapalooza this year. But that's okay. It's a minor point. I'm doing fan-flippin-tastic. How are you, Todd?
You know, I could not be better. We opened up the show with, you know, one of my all-time favorite musicians and humans. That would be who, Craig?
That'd be Uncle Ted. Terrible Ted, the Motor City Madman. Wango Tango.
To Tango, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first memories I have of Ted Nugent was on a school bus listening to that song. I don't know how old I was and where I was going. I mean, I was obviously going to school, you know, somewhere in Berkeley, Michigan, 100,000 years ago. And I don't know where I heard that song. I don't know even when it came out, but that song just destroys it for me. I love it.
Late 70s. I think 77 or 78 is when that came out.
Well, there you go.
I actually interviewed Ted Nugent about 10 years ago. It was supposed to be a 5-minute interview. He went on for 38 minutes. You know, and Uncle Ted's a little opinionated. Don't know if you know that about him, but he had some things to say.
Yeah, that's okay, though.
He had some things to say.
Yeah, he did. But back in the 90s, when I became an attorney in Metro Detroit, Uncle Ted had a radio show briefly, and I was honored enough. I was a young attorney. I knew somebody that was affiliated with the radio station. I bought some advertising on his show, and because I did so, he invited me on probably half a dozen times. So I was honored to have conversations with Uncle Ted on his radio show, and we were talking about the Second Amendment because we love the Second Amendment. So,
And Uncle Ted's a big Second Amendment guy, too.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for the most part.
And we have, Craig, I don't want to take up all the oxygen on the show today. We have a massive show for the listeners this week. We talked about it last week. Who's coming on the show, Craig?
Well, that would be your friend Joe. And
Yeah, that's right, Joe Pawlowski.
That's right, Joe Pawlowski, yep.
From Central Mid-Michigan. And Joe is a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. That's what my Marine friends always tell me. And he is a combat veteran. He's been doing a ton of good in the community, in the veteran community, giving back. He's always there for his fellow vets over the years. He's also the owner of Devildog Ink and Paint. Check it out, devildoginkandpaint.com. And he's going to be talking about that. He's got a new project and regarding his Humvee. It's a badass Humvee, Craig.
Yeah,
I sent you a video of that.
Yeah, it is.
So we're going to talk about his new show on YouTube that has to do with a Humvee and veterans and therapy and those type of issues. So why don't we just bring Joe on the show? I mean, here we are talking about Joe. Why don't we just bring him on? So
That sounds like a great idea. Joe, welcome to the show. Joe's here.
yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing, Joe?
Doing good.
Man, I'm just stoked to have you on the show, Joe. We talked about you last week, and over the years, we every show we give thanks to our veterans and their families who sacrifice so much, those who have served, those who are serving, and who will serve. And we just want to thank you for your service and your family also, because, you know, we talk about vets, but their families also sacrifice a lot. So we thank you and your family. Yep. And so, Joe, the story is Joe and I met, it seems like, I don't know, almost
Probably
20 years ago.
2007 maybe. Yeah, 2007-ish.
Yeah, 2007, I was doing Anthony, G-Money, and AZ. We were doing Skate Wars, our big skate war competition. I actually had a skateboard business, folks, believe it or not. And I met Joe, and you could meet people every day and you never click with them. But as soon as I met Joe, I really thought really highly of Joe. We became friends, and you're an artist, Joe. I mean, amongst other things you do. I mean, we're going to talk about you being a Marine and a veteran, but at that time, you know, you were doing artwork, and you designed a skate deck for Skate Wars, which was a skateboard competition, right?
Yes. Yep.
And what was that?
Actually,
What was that design, by the way?
So there was the design of the Marine kind of sitting down with wings by a wall that's all tattered up with bullet holes and stuff, and it just says Skate War on it. And then there was one with like a face. It was a cross with a face on it. Had Skate War going across one of the sides of it. They turned out pretty cool. They were my first therapeutic paintings, actually. It was like when I painted those, I still didn't have full range of motion or even partial range of motion in my arm, and I was wounded. Hurt my left arm, and I'm left-handed. So even when I painted those, I was so early on that I was like doing a lot of it right-handed and stuff. So
Stunning, Joe. They were stunning. In fact, I believe you still have one of the decks to this day hanging in your studio. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. In my art studio, I have one of the decks still hanging on the wall. It was actually donated back to me. I think it was when we had the booth set up, a guy purchased the deck and then just gave it back to me.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about your background. You were raised in central northern Michigan, and where did you attend high school?
I went to Harrison High School. Pretty much I went to Harrison most of my life until I graduated.
Sure. And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2001.
Oh, yeah, 2001. And again, I know these things about you, but for the audience, I definitely want them to hear your story. It's really important, too. And so in 2001, did you go into the Marine Corps right after high school?
Not directly after high school. I started working, and was working at a factory when September 11th happened. And it was shortly after that I just made the decision that I needed to go into the Marine Corps and do something about it.
And where did you go to boot camp?
I went out to San Diego, California.
All right. And then after that, at some point, you deployed?
Yes, I was in 2003 and 2004. They did the first push into Fallujah. My unit wasn't activated until 2005. I was initially in a reserve unit, 124 Bravo Company out of Michigan. And there's Alpha Company and Charlie Company all out of Michigan. And we were attached to a unit from Tennessee, a bunch of really awesome Tennessee Marines. We had a little conflict at first, Michigan versus Tennessee, but we came together good, and we were going to war, so we knew we had to get along and work together.
Okay. And as far as the type of missions that you were involved in, can you, if you're able to, are you able to talk a little bit about that? I don't want to cause any triggers on anyone listening to the show, or
no, I can be careful on certain things. But most definitely, because of my, a lot of veterans don't feel comfortable talking about stuff still to this day, even Vietnam vets and stuff. But I was fortunately able to be in positions where I could talk to guys a lot to help them, and it made it easier for me to discuss this stuff. So,
sure.
But yeah, we were tasked to go into Fallujah, Iraq. My company was stationed at the train station on the north edge of the city, and we would conduct house searches and vehicle searches, looking for weapons caches or explosives. And we'd go on foot patrols through the city many times. And, we just pretty much did whatever mission they had in front of us for us to do.
Sure. And this was, you said Fallujah?
Yes. Yep. It was Fallujah, Iraq. It was usually there's a rotation every, say, 7 to 9 months or so of a fresh unit of Marines. For the most part, it's around that time frame, and they rotate new units in. So we were replacing a unit, and we were coming in the day we replaced the unit. They had like 15 minutes left on the post before they were done with their entire deployment, and they got struck by a vehicle IED and killed one of their Marines. And so that was our like, oh wow moment, we're really here kind of thing.
And Craig, you had a question?
I did. I wanted to know how, was there a lot of intense fighting, or was it a lot of, you understand where I'm coming from? First place, yes. Was there a lot, or was it short bursts of intense fighting, or was it, did it happen a lot?
Short bursts.
Okay.
So like during the first year, the first push in 2004, those Marines, they suffered very, very heavy casualties. I met a lot of those guys over the years, and we all have our situations. But by the time my unit got there, it was towards the end of 2005, early 2006. So it had been going on for a year or so, and there was a lot more IEDs being placed, roadside explosives, improvised explosive devices, a lot of snipers. Almost every day someone was either getting shot at by a sniper or potentially hit. Quite often we had people, hit by IEDs, unfortunately, and those were probably the biggest threat at the time we were there. Lots of stuff was blowing up, but not as many. There wasn't huge groups of guys we were fighting, because by that time they knew that they didn't have a chance against us. So there'd be like 3 or 4 man teams. They would jump up and pop shot at us, and then they'd let go of their rifles and walk around the corner and blend in with, because at this time there was, in some cases just hundreds and hundreds of people on the streets, even in certain areas. So it wasn't like a war zone you typically think, where there was no civilian. There was kids playing soccer, and we would get in firefights, and we'd be shooting over the soccer field at bad guys, and these kids wouldn't even stop playing soccer sometimes. It was insane. They were so used to it.
Wow.
By then.
Yeah. Wow. It's just sitting here listening to you. I'm, it's unbelievable, but it's wow. I mean, Joe, you're our hero. So every single man and woman serving in any branch of the military, any role, they're our heroes. We appreciate your service and those of your Marines and everyone that has served. And we're talking with Joe Pawlowski, a good friend of mine. Known Joe a long time, so honored to have him on the show. He is the owner of check it out, folks. Devildog Ink and Paint.com. And tell us a little bit. I mean, Joe, we got a lot more questions for you, but before we go to break, and we've got 3 more segments, tell us a little bit about Devildog Ink and Paint and what you do.
Okay, so it kind of started over a process. I started getting back into drawing and artwork as physical therapy because I couldn't move my arm properly. I couldn't hold a pencil hardly. So I started doing artwork, drawing pictures again, and I started designing tattoos for guys. And eventually I got to the point where I could, use this to help my other veterans. I was thinking, I said, I got to do this, and I need a reason to hang out with my buddies for 6 or 8 hours without them getting in trouble by their old ladies or something, So,
right.
So I was like, I want to start tattooing. And so I did a lot of work and a lot of learning and everything I could, talk to as many people, learn from some good people. And eventually I was able to start tattooing and designing more tattoos and meeting up with guys I served with and guys that I didn't serve with, but was able to meet through my artwork and hear different stories and hear things they went through. And a lot of guys that come to me don't feel comfortable being in public places. They, some of them suffer from PTSD and stuff, so they don't want to go out and about and looking for areas or something. So they hear about me and what I've been through, and they feel comfortable being able to sit with me and talk to me about their things, because as a veteran, it is hard to talk to some people once in a while about what you're going through, what you went through, and knowing that they didn't experience it especially as far as combat goes, because it's like a whole new world. So I needed a way to express that, and I needed to hear other guys. I was always worried about my buddies hurting themselves and stuff. So if they were having a bad time, I said, hey, come in here and I'll draw something up for you. And it's hard on me. There's plenty of days where I can't do much because my arm starts to flare up. I can't really, I can hardly hold a paintbrush and stuff sometimes. But, once I'm feeling it, I try to get back at it, because it's the only way I can keep my head busy too, besides my family. When my family's all asleep and the world's quiet, that's how I stay busy.
That is awesome. Joe Pawlowski was...
the Operation Iraqi Freedom.
There we go. We've got to take a break, but we come back more with Joe coming up on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt here to tell you about my favorite one and only, the only one I go to, M66 Cannabis Company, recreational dispensary right here in the great state of Michigan, central northern Michigan, located at 3023 20 Mile Road, Beaverton, Michigan, between Big Rapids and Mount Pleasant, Michigan. M66 Cannabis Company is frickin' fantastic, folks, from pipes to edibles to flower, 24 different strains. The staff, all locally hired, general manager, knowledgeable, community-oriented, family-owned. Be sure to check out M66 Cannabis Company, Beaverton, Michigan.
Hey, this is Mike Messina, general manager at M66 Cannabis Company out of Barrington, Michigan, off of M66. And I want to personally invite you down to M66 Cannabis Company to come peruse our wide selection of different products, 18 different strains of flower, 29 different types of cartridges, and so much more. We've got everything that you could possibly need, and a very well-trained and compassionate staff there to help you find exactly what you're looking for.
That's M66 Cannabis Company, located at 3023 20 Mile Road. That's 3023 20 Mile Road. My favorite recreational dispensary here in Michigan. Be sure to stop in and tell the folks when you get there you heard it right here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
The following segment of the Todd L. Levitt Law Show contains graphic scenes of military violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Baby,
Welcome back to the Todd 11 Law Show, turning it and burning it with Uncle Ted. Wango Tango, Craig, again, just destroying my noggin over here. It's, man, I just cannot get enough of Uncle Ted.
I know, you love Uncle Ted. He's your guy. And, of course, with hunting season coming up, not only in bow season's already on. In a couple of weeks, it'll be deer firearm season. Uncle Ted will be on everyone's mind with Fred Bear and everything. But we have got a fantastic special guest. If anybody's going to overshadow Ted Nugent, it's our special guest. Who is that, Todd?
Joe Pawlowski. Joe, a good friend, and I don't say that lightly. I have nothing but love and respect for Joe. Dear friend of mine. I'm honored to have known him for almost, I think, 2007, around that time. But Marine Corps, Purple Heart veteran. Joe served in Fallujah, Iraq in 2006. And I'll let Joe continue to tell the story. But after a very long recovery, Joe started to draw and paint for therapy. And if you missed the first segment, be sure to check out the show on any podcasting platform. But started to paint as therapy for his arm and hand and his mind. And Joe, I think it's fair to say, he uses art as a way to help himself and especially, just as important, other veterans. Joe gives so much back as a veteran himself to other veterans. And through art like tattooing, Devildog Ink and Paint provides, paint therapy. And Joe has done that for all his veteran brothers and sisters. So, Joe, we're so honored to have you on the show today, and we appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you. How you good, man? So the story about Ted Nugent, he had the Fred Bear days up in Grayling a couple weeks back, and so we went up there to see him and listen to him sing Fred Bear, and I got these little stickers made that I drew up of a bobblehead of a guy I served with, Troy, and I stick them everywhere, or I hand them out to people and we stick them everywhere, and we call it Tiny Troy Adventures. And so I was able to give Ted Nugent a couple of those stickers. So I hope you put them somewhere cool. Just if he ever hears this, I want him to know. I hope you put him somewhere cool. So.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see. I'd like to get one of those stickers, put it in my office in Mount Pleasant. I'd be honored.
Yeah, I'll bring you one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So Joe, let's go back to Iraq. You're serving in Iraq in Fallujah. Was it 2006? Is that correct? Around that time? Okay.
Yes.
And, take us through, if you would. It's, I'm not at liberty, out of respect for you and veterans, to talk about what a vet had gone through, but this is your story. And, take us through what happens next.
Okay. So, we were there a pretty short period of time when we had our first casualty in our unit. As far as someone getting wounded, we had a Marine, Love. He got wounded in an IED explosion pretty bad, which affects him the rest of his life. But fortunately, he was able to stay alive, and the docs did a good job keeping him up there. And then just recently, on October 23rd, was the anniversary date that we had one of our biggest losses of the deployments at that point. We had a group of 5 Marines in a Humvee. They ran over an IED. Lance Corporal Overstreet and Lance Corporal Verstetta were both killed. And the other 3 Marines in it, Frazier, Henry, and Thomas, were all pretty badly wounded. Frazier lost both his legs. And he's one of the most positive people I know to this day still, though. But, so it was a pretty rough day. That was really hard. Going back to the squad bay and having to pack all their stuff up, that's when it really, really hit home. Like, oh man, there's no video game here. Like, you don't get extra lives. We gotta be careful. We can't make any mistakes. And which that day, no one made any mistakes. It's just someone was waiting for the right moment to push a button, and that's what happened. So shortly after that, we had a few other incidences. Here and there. There's a lot of downtime. People don't think of that because it's not like nonstop firefights and stuff. We did have lots of downtime, and then we always had a term, complacency kills, because no matter how bored you get or something, you can't get complacent, because it'll be at that moment that something does happen. I have a pretty funny story if you'd like to hear it.
Sure.
Of course.
We were on a roof overlooking the city. It was around Michigan, and we were on OP Klinger, I believe it was. And there was a car coming down the road, and it was not curfew yet. So rules of engagement, we have to shoot a flare at the car sometimes to stop them and let them know we see them and they're driving past curfew. So one of our buddies, Overstreet, standing in the post, and he says, "Corporal Pawlowski, can I launch this flare?" I said, "Yeah." And so I'm watching him, and he hits this flare, and it bounces off the window and flies back and lands between these racks where the other Marines were sleeping, and it explodes, right? Well, Henry wakes up, and his Kevlar helmet and his gloves and stuff are all on fire, and he yells, "RPG!" And I'm sitting here laughing the whole time because they just thought an RPG hit, and they all jump up, and they're freaking out because, just everything's on fire. And our platoon sergeant jumps up and gets tangled in a bug net and trips over a glass bottle and hits his head on the wall. And I'm just watching this whole thing. And I eventually I'm like, no, it wasn't an RPG. We're not under attack, And, so there's moments like that too that I'll definitely always remember, because Overstreet, he was one that was killed in the IED shortly after that incident. So that's one of those moments that I'll never forget. It was really funny just to see the look on everyone's face, especially afterwards when they knew it was pretty much a giant firework, But so, we had incidents like that, stuff like lots of times where guys were super courageous, super brave. We did as much as we could to help out the population as well. There was children that needed food, water, stuff like that. We'd hand out food and water. We'd hand out a lot of candy to the kids. We felt like having all the children around actually kept us safer, kind of, because once everyone would disappear, you knew something bad was about to happen. And then I guess it was December 28th, my platoon and we were tasked to go on patrol on foot into the city and take over a couple houses to set up observation posts. And while we were in those houses, we had multiple sniper rounds impact the buildings. It was shortly after daylight that they realized that we had taken these houses over, because it's kind of hard, as sneaky as we were getting into the city, it's pretty easy for the neighbors and stuff to hear when we got to bust a hole through the wall to look at the street. So our lieutenant seen something that looked suspicious on the other side of the street. He asked us to go out and search this car and search this house. So my squad, Corporal Eskelson was a squad leader at the time. We went down, we got all our team around. We went out, searched this car. We sent all of our Marines in, and me and Corporal Eskelson searched the car because we knew there was a sniper in the area. So we wanted those guys to start searching the house just so they were out of as much harm's way as possible too. So we go in, we finish our search, didn't really find much. We're getting ready to head back into the house we were in. We had the Marines that were on the roof throwing smoke grenades to cover our movement. And then we had to go through this alley right across the road where there was a little door. Most of the houses over there have big walls around them. So they're not like little mud huts. A lot of them are really big houses, actually, like 2-3 story brick houses. They all have like a 6 or 8 foot wall around them. And so we're going down this alleyway, and I hear 2 pops. Initially, I thought it was smoke grenades going off. And then the third pop, Miller was in front of me, Lance Corporal Miller. He fell. And at first, I thought he tripped because he was carrying the breach kit, which consisted of like a sledgehammer, a pry bar, and stuff. And he was a littler dude, so that's why we had him carrying the breach kit to make his legs strong. So, but I seen him fall, and he was in my fire team. I was his fire team leader. I ran up to him. I grabbed him right away. I knew something wasn't right. And that's when I realized those first 2 pops as well were 2 other Marines behind me that had been hit. And there was already the Marines and their fire teams were getting to them. So I started dragging Miller off the street. That's when I got hit the first time. And the first round went through my upper arm and out my armpit. And I kind of like right away, my initial reaction was like, oh, and like, what was that? I looked down, I didn't see any blood or nothing at the time. So I went back down to grab Miller and drag him again. And that's when I got hit the second time. And the second round actually hit my collarbone and turned sideways. So when it went through my shoulder blade, it blew my shoulder blade apart pretty badly, like a broken plate, pretty much. It just shattered it. I felt like I got hit with a sledgehammer in the back, actually. Right at that moment, I seen my point man. He was shooting at the sniper. So I lifted my rifle up to shoot back, and because I didn't know how severely I had been wounded at the time. And when I went to shoot back, my brain was pulling the trigger, but nothing happened. So like muscle memory, I said, I must have a jam. I went to tap rack bang it, and when I looked down, I seen my arm was kind of hanging a little. I was like, ooh, that's not good.
Boy.
So that's when I started, I called in on the radio that, hey, we're taking contact and stuff. And I went and grabbed my saw gunner, who was Cliff, Lance Corporal Cliff. He's the one who saved my life. But I started directing him around the building. The other Marines were doing their jobs. I knew they were taking care of their areas. So I grabbed him and I said, we got to get to a covered position, and he didn't know I'd been hit yet. At one point, I actually went into shock pretty quickly. I didn't realize how much blood I was losing right away, but I went into shock and I let go of him, and I walked up to this door in the middle of a firefight, and I knocked on this door and was like, United States Marines, let us in. And he was like, Corporal Pawlowski, what are you doing? I said, oh, crap. Yeah, let's get covered. So we bust through this little alleyway door, and we take cover in this little crapper house. They all have like outdoor bathrooms. Most of them do, with little holes in the floor. And they have a little bucket there they use to wash their hand after they use the bathroom, I guess. And so we flipped the bucket over, and I sat down on the bucket, and I started trying to take my flak jacket off, and I was like, I couldn't move my arm or nothing. It was really weird. I didn't know what was, like, oh crap. And I'm left-handed, so I'm trying to do it and it's not working. And that's when my saw gunner realized that I had been wounded. And so I'm sitting on the bucket, and he says, I'm going to dump Quick Clot on your back. I said, don't dump that on me. I'm going to shoot you in the foot, because I didn't want it to burn. I heard Quick Clot burns. As I'm bleeding to death, I'm just thinking I don't want it to burn. So I'm just joking. I'm like, don't dump that on me. I'll shoot you in the foot. And so he starts grabbing gauze out of my medical pack, shoving it in my back, like just fist-sized balls of gauze, as much as I had in my pack. He fit right in my back. He saved my life for sure. I was holding his pistol on the doorway to keep security while he was bandaging me up. I was starting to kind of get a little drowsy, a little dozing off. And he kept kind of keeping me awake the whole time, because I'm keeping security while he's keeping me alive. And eventually, we could hear gunfire getting closer and stuff. And at one point, I was actually going to throw a grenade over the wall. But in my mind, it was going to be way easier. But in reality, I only had one hand, so I'm trying to convince him to pull the pin on the grenade so I can throw it over this wall. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, they're getting closer, pull the pin. And he's like, no, I'm not pulling that pin. You're not going to throw that grenade over the wall. You're not going to make it, And I probably wouldn't have, because but right around that time, I seen the QRF vehicles, the Quick Reaction Force, pull up. I seen them pull up through the crack in the door, down the street, actually. So we had to relay to the guys on the roof, like, hey, there's a green Humvee with tan doors, or a tan Humvee with green doors. Tell them to back up. I'm right down that alleyway. And that's when they backed up, and they drove down there, and that's when they found us, and they got us into the Humvee. By then, the corpsmen and stuff like that, they were trying to get the other guys off the street. They rushed us to Camp Fallujah Surgical Hospital. And that's when I realized that all three Marines didn't make it. So that was a pretty rough moment. But from there, I pretty much started my long journey to recovery, which was probably one of the hardest parts, being in the hospital while those guys were still there, fighting, and they just had to lose all of us. And so that was a pretty hard part to deal with. But they sent me to Germany. I was in Germany. I had a few surgeries in Germany, and then from there I went to Balboa Naval Hospital in California, and I spent 6 months there I had a couple other surgeries, and from there, that's when I came home and shortly after got out of the Marine Corps because of my injuries.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I mean, man, you know,
It was,
I mean, the majority of people listening to this right now have either saw a movie and it doesn't happen like that, or played a video game, it doesn't happen like that. I mean, that's the real story right there. That, you know, that's how it really happens. You know, most of the time.
It was definitely quick. It was one of those things too where so Lance Corporal Spencer, he was 19, and when Corporal Eskelson got hit, Spencer was actually trying to get to Eskelson so he could help him, and that's when Spencer got hit and he didn't survive. So, you know, and he's just a 19-year-old kid. At the time, I was 23, so I was like the old man, you know.
Well, Joe, you know, we're just honored that you're even here with us, and our thoughts and prayers, and we'll always keep those Marines and young men in our memories. And can you once again, state their names out of respect for who they are? And is that okay?
Yeah, for sure. So in our, so the day I got wounded, Corporal Eskelson, Lance Corporal Spencer, and Lance Corporal Miller were both killed, fighting for our freedoms, you know, fighting for the guy from the left and right. So,
Wow.
And then we lost Overstreet and Berstetta, and then Staff Sergeant Ski. He was one of the last ones in our unit that was killed, and he was also killed by a sniper.
And luckily, we didn't lose you. Luckily, we were. You were, by the grace of God, were spared from that.
It was wild. It was crazy too, because being in the reserves, I was over there fighting with. There was like 6 other guys in our unit that I went to school with. So in my platoon, there was a couple guys that I grew up with. One of my buddies from Harrison, John Hamilton, he was with me. He covered fire for us. He was shooting everything he could with his machine gun, just trying to cover for us so that way we could get away from the fire zone. And he just passed away recently of some illness, and so that was pretty sad. And I was able to paint one of his casket actually. I was asked to do that by him before he passed away. So
wow. We're talking with Joe Pawlowski, who is a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, also the owner of Devildog Ink and Paint.com, friends with Todd. We've got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll start to talk a little more about the therapeutic stuff that you're going through and some of the other things you do to give back to the vets on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We'll be right back.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt here to tell you about my favorite one and only, the only one I go to, M66 Cannabis Company, recreational dispensary right here in the great state of Michigan, central northern Michigan, located at 3023 20 Mile Road, Beaverton, Michigan, between Big Rapids and Mount Pleasant, Michigan. M66 Cannabis Company is frickin' fantastic, folks, from pipes to edibles to flower, 24 different strains. The staff, all locally hired, general manager, knowledgeable, community-oriented, family-owned. Be sure to check out M66 Cannabis Company, Beaverton, Michigan.
Hey, this is Mike Messina, general manager at M66 Cannabis Company out of Barrington, Michigan, off of M66. And I want to personally invite you down to M66 Cannabis Company to come peruse our wide selection of different products, 18 different strains of flower, 29 different types of cartridges, and so much more. We've got everything that you could possibly need and a very well-trained and compassionate staff there to help you find exactly what you're looking for.
That's M66 Cannabis Company, located at 3023 20 Mile Road. That's 3023 20 Mile Road. My favorite recreational dispensary here in Michigan. Be sure to stop in and tell the folks when you get there you heard it right here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
The following segment of the Todd L. Levitt Law Show contains graphic scenes of military violence. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. De Wango, de Tango. It's Uncle Ted, Todd, Craig, and our special guest, Joe Pawlowski, who is a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He's also the owner
Marine.
Marine. And Devildog Ink and Paint.com. I know Todd has said this a couple of different times, but I will say it again as well. We thank you for your service. We talk about this every week on the show, that without veterans who give the ultimate sacrifice, and you were there in the middle of Operation Iraqi Freedom, giving you were around people who were killed. You could have been killed. Luckily, you weren't. But thank you for
thank you, Joe.
Keeping us free.
Women.
Around this time of year, especially with the election coming up and everything, the democracy that we're in, we have the ability to not only elect a president and vote for people, but we have all the freedoms that we have. And I always tell people time and time again, if you don't like it in the United States, you think we're a bad country, you think we're screwed up, go live somewhere else. You will be screaming and running fast to come back here, because this is the greatest country in the world. And we thank you so much for your service and for what you sacrificed, so Todd and I can do this, Gab Fest every week. We appreciate it. You have no idea. 100,000 times indebted to you. So you were telling us about how what you went through, and then when you came back from being wounded in Iraq, and then now you're back in Michigan, and you started to want to give back, because there's a lot of veterans who don't have an outlet like what you discovered your outlet is doing painting. Talk a little bit how you got started with all that.
So it was right around the time I was really getting to the point I could draw a little bit more and stuff like that I decided to get into painting, just to learn more about color and stuff, because I've always just been a pencil and ink pen kind of artist. So I took a painting class in college, and it didn't really go too well. The class went great. It just, I wasn't ready to be in that kind of environment yet. And, I was still having a lot of, social issues maybe. I come home, and it was really hard for me to get back into the regular lifestyle, especially at first, when I was in the hospital. It was real hard because my guys were still over there. And then when they finally got home, it made it a little more comfortable to know that they weren't over there without me. But then I come home and everything's different. And, I had to go through some pretty serious, things to get custody of my son, who was 3 years old at the time. And shortly after that, when I met Todd with Skate Wars, it was like right around then that I met my wife that I'm married to now, and we've been together for over 15 years. And so she was a huge part of me getting involved with staying involved with the art as well. I started painting, and one of my buddies asked if I could paint his motorcycle. And I was like, man, I'll try. I've never really gotten to airbrushing too much, but I'd love to do that. So he actually purchased a kit for me, and then like a little cheap airbrush kit off, probably just eBay at the time. I don't even know if Amazon was a thing yet. And I started painting his bike, and it turned out pretty good. It was all right. And then I did one more for a Marine that served, and his motorcycle turned out awesome, and he was winning some awards on it. And I said, man, I'm going to have to, this was an awesome time for me to stay busy. Like, cause I don't sleep very well still. I have, I just like staying up late, I guess. I don't know. I've learned to adapt to it. So at night, that's the hard times. And that's when a lot of veterans have the hardest times, like at night when everyone else is asleep and stuff, and they can have time to think. So that's when I stay busy painting. And that's when I learned, like, it really is helpful for me to stay up with this artwork, because, I couldn't do the jobs that I used to be able to do. I was a construction worker before the Marine Corps. I couldn't do that anymore because, I could hold a pencil and draw and move my arm a certain way, but I couldn't lift it up and lift things that you'd have to do in construction, I guess. But, and I wasn't real good at talking with people I still have kind of a hard time talking in front of people. So this is nice, just kind of a small little group of us. That's kind of what I like. And I realize I have to be around my veteran buddies. So my wife, she says, why don't you just do this more to help your veteran buddies and get them to come spend time with you? And I said,
and in turn, it helps you. And in turn, it helps you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In turn, it helped me.
Therapeutic for you.
It was very, very therapeutic.
So, Joe, how can people who are listening to the show, maybe there's obviously a vet listening or somebody that knows a family member or a friend who is a veteran, how can they reach out to you on social media, and can you give out your website, all the information?
Yep. So I have Devildog Ink and Paint.com is the art business, custom artwork that, my wife and I run, and she kind of does all the important stuff. I just like to draw, so
I know how that is.
Yeah. They can check out.
I got a
website.
boss here too. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, that's exactly how it goes though. And, I wish I could fire her as the boss sometimes, but it keeps me on my toes, I can't, because then I'd be lost for sure. So if anything, I need to give her a raise.
That's great.
So I started having guys come over to just hang out and watch me work on painting or help me work, because a lot of times I had to sand these parts down, and it was really hard on me to do with my injuries and stuff. So they'd come over and hang out and prep out their own motorcycle, so that way I could paint on it, and then eventually I had guys reaching out to me that were having a hard time at night. And so I said, well, just, come to the studio and we'll go from there. And that's what kind of started like the pain therapy aspect of stuff. Cause, I was doing patriotic military tattoos, and all the guys I served with wanted me to work on them. So that was the thing that they would do, is especially if they were having a hard time, especially my buddy Pete Mattice I served with. He's the one who kind of started it out. He'd come over and get tattoos at 3 a.m. and he said, man, it's therapeutic. It's pain therapy. And it definitely was. And in 2016, unfortunately, he passed away. But that's kind of what really stuck me to it. And I said, no matter what, I got to do this. There's no way I can't. So, I've had help, luckily, through guys like Dave from Desired Skin Tattoos. He really hooked me up with a spot to work on guys with at his shop. And that was just like unbelievable for him to be able to do that for me. And then from there, I just go other places, and, I do murals and stuff if I have to. And if I get asked to, I did a wall mural for Rob O'Neill, the guy that killed Osama bin Laden. I was able to go to his place and paint a big wall mural of his missions that he's done, and then of his hometown and stuff. And that was an amazing experience. I would like to do more stuff like that. It's pretty hard on me. Sometimes I can't really paint above my eyes with my left hand, so everything above my eyes I have to do right-handed. So it gets kind of tricky, but it's just one of those things that, I'm not good at, I guess, admitting sometimes that I have to talk to people. And I know there's a lot of veterans out there who are even worse at wanting to talk to people. It kind of makes you feel weak, if you got these issues going on, you don't want to share them. But I've learned over the years that that's the best way to deal with them, is to talk about it, especially to someone that understands completely. They try to help us out with the VA and stuff, but sometimes you're talking to a doctor who talks to hundreds of patients, and you can't really get comfortable with them. You can't tell them, I went to a doctor for years, and I went in there one time and she didn't even know that I had been wounded. And I'm like, I've been coming to you for years, and you think this scar just showed up on my back? It looks like I got bit by a great white shark. So,
wow.
Well, it's like when you're a kid, and sometimes you'd rather talk to an older brother as opposed to your mom or dad about a problem. It's kind of the same deal. It's talking to you about it. You're somebody who's been through it. You know exactly what they're going through, and can help a lot more than a doctor who's never been never spent day one in combat or anything like that. Doctors are great, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need to talk to somebody who knows what you're talking about. And you're also doing this with a new thing too. This is the Humvee show. Tell us about that on YouTube.
That's a great idea, by the way, Joe.
Thank you. So I purchased a Humvee. It was kind of like a midlife crisis thing, you know. It's like I've always wanted one, and I had the opportunity to come up, and you know, the process of getting the Humvee was kind of a pain in the butt.
Hey, Joe, I got to interrupt you. We don't have enough time to talk about that, but we're definitely going to. No, I want you to keep going, but we're definitely going to do a whole show on, you know, just ripping on that whole story, because I'll tell you, as a friend, you're a dear friend, and as a veteran, everything you went through to purchase that Humvee is just, I'll just say it's disgusting, and I don't ever want to see that happen to anyone, let alone one of our heroes like you. But anyhow, we'll just talk about, you got the Humvee, and it's a badass Humvee, but go ahead.
So I said, you know, I had a buddy come up, my buddy Frazier, that lost his legs in an IED explosion I was talking about earlier. He came up to visit, and we were sitting in the Humvee, and we were drinking some beers, hanging out, you know, and I was just listening to his story. That was the first time I heard his story of what their conversation was while he got wounded, you know, and I just clicked. I said, man, people need to hear this. You know, people need to hear these stories of guys that are just, I say, the abnormal, normal veterans. So, you know, there's these veterans that are great guys that are very successful and stuff, but everyone knows them and knows their stories. But, you know, guys like me and guys like Frazier, their local circles know their stories, but you know, I feel like everyone needs to hear their stories. So I said, I'm gonna start a podcast. I don't know anything about technology. I don't know how to, you know, do any editing type stuff like that, really. But I said, I'm gonna do this, and you know, I reached out for some help from a couple guys that do podcasts and a couple veterans organizations that have helped me in the past with things, to see if they could get me in touch with someone. And you know, the Creative Vets program, they do like music and stuff for veterans, and this guy that I wrote a song with during that program, he got me in touch with a guy who told me like what microphones to get, and another guy told me what apps I should use. And then, you know, Todd's given me some advice even just recently that, you know, I want to sit down with you and actually, you know, pick your brain a little more too, and take some notes so I don't forget everything. But
absolutely, I look forward to helping you out. It's a great podcast. I mean, you was that a test episode? What's the name of the podcast, and how can people follow you on YouTube?
It's Inside the Humvee podcast. They can just go on YouTube, Inside the Humvee, and or on Instagram also. It's at Inside the Humvee, Inside the Humvee podcast. But they can reach me on there. I put one test episode out. It was 15 minutes long, and it was my brother-in-law. He had no clue I was going to do it.
Chris, right? Isn't that Chris?
Yes.
Chris did a great job.
And it's already
gotten Chris.
It's gotten 180 views as of the taping of this show. So it's obviously
Chris.
People are picking up on it, which is awesome.
Yeah. So please check out Joe's channel and subscribe to him. And what's it called again? The Humvee podcast.
Inside the Humvee.
Inside the Humvee. Yeah. That's right.
Because it all takes place inside the Humvee. Like, we're just sitting inside the Humvee, and you know, once in a while, if I get individual that physically can't get inside the Humvee because of injuries or something, then it'll be, you know, a special episode of Outside the Humvee. But for the most part, Inside the Humvee. There's a website that's going to be up soon. It's still under construction, InsideTheHumvee.com. And then there's my Instagram for Devildog Ink and Paint as well. You can check out some of my artwork and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't wait to get some of these guys in here and hear what they have to say. I'm going to talk to just patriots, just true Americans, you know, people that haven't even served in the military. I'm going to have law enforcement, you know, firefighters, EMS, and then veterans, especially the guys I served with in particular, because I feel like they all have a story of their own. Guys that were in the incident where I got wounded, but I don't know what it was like from their point of view. You know, I want to hear what it was like from their point of view. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I think people are really going to like listening to these stories too.
Let's
a lot of it might be just joking around, and who knows?
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, let's end the segment on a positive note. One of the comments on your channel, LFG Joe, and you don't have to know much what LFG means. I won't say what it, but that's right there. Joe Pawlowski from who is a Marine veteran from the Inside the Humvee podcast, which is awesome. Joe, we can't thank you enough for spending time
truly, Joe,
and being on the show with us.
Thank you for giving me this chance to share my story with you guys.
I know I speak for Todd, but anytime you want to come back, we will make room for you.
In fact,
anytime.
I was talking to Joe, let's have Joe back. I know Veterans Day is coming up.
Yeah,
and love to have you on, Joe, at least. I mean, if you have the time, if you can come on once a month, every other month, talk about, some of the artwork you're doing, some of the veteran issues. There's so many issues out there affecting veterans, from suicide to homelessness, to full-time work. So many issues involving vets, and we love and appreciate you and all the vets and your families. And you're my hero, Joe. I love you, brother. And you can, again, be sure to check out, what Joe does on Devildog Ink and Paint.com. Devildog Ink and Paint.com, Joe. And once again, give out the Humvee show on YouTube, Joe.
It's going to be Inside the Humvee podcast.
Inside the Humvee podcast with my good friend, Marine Joe Pawlowski. And I love the first test episode and look forward to giving you all the information that Craig and I can give you in regards to how we podcast and what we do to reach a broader audience. And people need to hear your story and those of the vets. And Joe's doing it for therapeutic reasons, Craig, not just for himself, but he's so selfless. He's giving back to others. And that's who he is. He gives so much of himself to others, and he's just an amazing human and a great father, great husband as well. Well, that goes without saying.
And just a great guy, just getting to know him.
I love Joe. I've known Joe a long time. Absolutely.
Joe, thank you. Thanks,
Joe.
Again.
Yes, thank you guys. I really appreciate it, and it's a great show. I love listening to it, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to having you back on again and again and again. So we'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
We'll take a break and we'll wrap up the show coming up next.
This is attorney Todd L. Levitt here to tell you about my favorite one and only, the only one I go to, M66 Cannabis Company, recreational dispensary right here in the great state of Michigan, central northern Michigan, located at 3023 20 Mile Road, Beaverton, Michigan, between Big Rapids and Mount Pleasant, Michigan. M66 Cannabis Company is frickin' fantastic, folks, from pipes to edibles to flower, 24 different strains. The staff, all locally hired, general manager, knowledgeable, community-oriented, family-owned. Be sure to check out M66 Cannabis Company, Beaverton, Michigan.
Hey, this is Mike Messina, general manager at M66 Cannabis Company out of Barrington, Michigan, off of M66. And I want to personally invite you down to M66 Cannabis Company to come peruse our wide selection of different products, 18 different strains of flower, 29 different types of cartridges, and so much more. We've got everything that you could possibly need and a very well-trained and compassionate staff there to help you find exactly what you're looking for.
That's M66 Cannabis Company, located at 3023 20 Mile Road. That's 3023 20 Mile Road. My favorite recreational dispensary here in Michigan. Be sure to stop in and tell the folks when you get there you heard it right here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
The following segment of the Todd L. Levitt Law Show contains graphic scenes of military violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Larger
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. I want to give thanks once again. He's my hero. We love him. Joe Pawlowski, Marine Corps, Purple Heart veteran.
And now giving back so much. Giving back
combat
so much.
veteran, wounded combat veteran. What a show. And he is the owner of Devildog Ink and Paint.com. Check it out. And Joe's going to be coming back on the show next month. And his new Humvee show on YouTube.
Yep, the Humvee podcast. You just search Inside the Humvee. Search for that on YouTube. Just a great guy, and we say it time and time again. A veteran who sacrificed his life so you and I could do this every week. And some gave the ultimate sacrifice. He talked about guys he was serving with who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Luckily, he didn't have to give that, but he was prepared to do it, and we couldn't thank him enough. Just fantastic.
And we had Joe on one not only because he's a dear friend of mine. I've known him a long time, but also because. We love our vets, and there's so much going on in the world, in our country, all the noise. We can never forget those who have sacrificed so that we can have the freedoms we have. And everybody's always complaining about this or that, but there's men and women and families, such as our dear friend Joe Pawlowski, who gave the ultimate sacrifice, like those that he served with, including himself. Let's never lose sight of that. And that's why we want to do the show and keep those. There's so many veterans struggling. Suicide is a serious thing. There's so many issues, and we have this platform, and we're going to continue to bring it to the public because it should never be forgotten, ever.
Agreed. 100%. 100%.
With that, Craig, we got to go.
Show is over, Todd. Let's go.
Thank you, Joe Pawlowski. We love you, brother. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. On a somber note, I'm not just a litigator. I'm an advocator. We appreciate all our vets. Take us out, Craig, with a little Uncle Ted.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Clark Modular Homes of Mount Pleasant, Rusty Gold Antiques in Everett, Chad Malley Well Drilling of Rosebush, Clear Vision Windows, Siding and Roofing of Midland, and attorney Todd L. Levitt.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.